Currently, I have released 3 videos on my Halo mocks: the Warthog, the Hornet, and the Falcon. These are on my channel, so if you haven't checked them out yet, please do. After this video, of course. In each of the titles, I've labelled them Ultimate Scale Series, or USS. But what do I mean by that? Well, in this video, I'm going to go through what I mean by USS and what standard I set myself for building USS mocks. I'm sure that everyone's heard of the LEGO Ultimate Collector's Series sets, or UCS. In this series, they typically have a no holes barred attitude and try to create the absolute best set for any collector, but most importantly, any scale. These sets look phenomenal, but can range from being a wildly small scale all the way to being far larger than minifigure scale, with little consistency. And to be fair to LEGO, this does make sense. The larger you build a set, the more details you can typically fit into it. One of MEGA's main strong suits has always been its figures. Don't get me wrong, sets like Forward Unto Dawn, nope, yep, that one, have always appealed to me, if I could even get hold of one. But when you get hold of many sets, they become even more impressive when you can put them against the context of others, but in the same scale. So scaling sets accurately against figures as close as possible is important. So first, we've set a consistent scale that we want to build to, and we want to build to that scale with figures in mind. So now, we need to find what the scale of the figures actually are. Unfortunately, that's another question entirely. What figures are we talking about here? Old Spartans, new Spartans, old Marines, new Marines, new Marines, ODSTs or other Marines? And that's before we even get started on the Covenant. So, in order to find a rough scale factor, we need to measure the height of the figures and compare that to their rough height from in-game figures. So the figures that we're currently interested in scaling are new Spartans, new Marines, other humans, new elites, brutes, grunts, and jackals. I would have added drones, prophets, and new hunters in at the time, but I didn't have any of them. So this is what I found. Spartan figures came out at 52mm tall. Compared that to the average height of 2.08 meters in game, and you get a scale of 1 to 40. Other Marine figures come out at 53mm tall, with a scale coming to 1 to 36. The new Marines were measured at 52mm tall, meaning they come out at a scale of 1 to 36 again. The updated elites come out at 57mm with a scale factor of 1 to 42. Brutes are measured to be 52mm with a scale of 1 to 52. Grunts are measured at a height of 47mm with a scale of 1 to 32. And finally, jackals are measured at a height of 52mm with a scale of 1 to 38. Thanks for bearing with me with that one. Right, so what we found with that was that the obvious outliers here are the brutes, which are way too small, and the grunts, which are a fair bit larger than they should be. All of the other figures that we were interested in sat between 1 to 35 and 1 to 42. So I took a rough midpoint of that scale and settled on a final scale of 1 to 38. What this means is that everything that is 38 meters in real life or in game size is the equivalent to 1 meter in block form. So there we have it. We wanted a single scale to base everything from, and we wanted that to be based around the rough scale of the figures. So we've settled on a scale of 1 to 38. So the next thing to do is to figure out how I can appropriately scale any sets based on that scale. So let's take my most recent USS video as an example, the Falcon. Go watch that video if you haven't already, but for now, I can find that the Falcon's in-game length is 11.4 meters. If we divide that by 38, then the results show it's 0.3 meters, so 300mm or 30 centimeters, or 11.8 inches in freedom units. So that's the size that I'm going to be aiming for, but as brick building isn't an exact science, I'll allow for a plus or minus 10% tolerance. So anything from around 27 centimeters to 33 centimeters, but as close to 30 centimeters as possible. That's the scale done, but what about the ultimate? Well, that's it really. I'm trying to create the absolute best possible vehicles whilst also fitting it to scale. Doing so includes a few standards that I've set myself. Other than the obvious standard of aiming to get the scale and proportions right, I also include 1. Including as many feasible features as possible. This includes moving parts, figures seated, and various functions like landing gear and detailed interiors. 2. Reduce exposed studs where possible. So I know some people like them, but I prefer to create a model that is as clean as possible. Some studs may be included for figures to stand on or modular purposes though. Typically, I'll do this either by tiling off an area or by building the model in a SNOT method. 3. Reduce exposed undersides of bricks and cover off the underside in general. So one of the things that's worse than exposed studs are exposed undersides of bricks. Now most brands like to use a bottom-up build method. They also typically like to reduce any costs where possible, and one place where most people aren't that fussed about is the underside. So they'll usually just leave it completely undone, which means that as soon as you look at the underside of any vehicle that you've built, it looks pretty hideous to be honest. But this is Ultimate. So this means that it should have the most detail, and that's everywhere, not just on top. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a few cases where I just can't get the detail in, but it's especially important if a vehicle has a very obvious and easy to see underside, such as an air vehicle. 4. Modularity. Certain areas of vehicles may lend themselves to adaptation. I aim to leave in suitable attachment points for obvious areas where some vehicles may be able to be modded. These may either be exposed or may have to remove a few parts in order to mod them. This isn't going to be present for every vehicle, but where I can, I will include it. 5. Durability. Whilst this is not the primary concern, nothing is more frustrating than having a nice looking model and not being able to manipulate it or examine it easily. Certain mocks are bound to have weak areas, like most recently the front of my Falcon. But if you can barely move it from any area of the build without it spontaneously disintegrating, then it isn't really a great model. So there we have it. Those are the standards that I try to set myself when trying to build the ultimate of a model. Now finally, let's move on to series. I'm aiming to create a whole lineup of vehicles that all scale and look great with each other. I'm not going to lie, I am biased towards Reach and especially biased towards Halo 3. So these are the primary areas that I will be focusing on, especially at first. But you never know, there will almost definitely be a few outliers every now and then. Recently, I've had a fairly good supply of dark sage green, so UNSC vehicles have been my main priority as I've had the pieces to build them. But I have been gradually building up my various purple blocks over time. As far as I'm aware, the only large dark blue set that Mega has managed to release was the Spirit, and I completely missed that. So don't expect anything crazy like a Phantom anytime soon. Saying that though, I'd love to take a crack at it should I ever be able to economically amass enough bricks. In the meantime, there's plenty more to come, and one especially big one coming over the horizon. So give me a sub if you want to see more. So there we have it. That's what Ultimate Scale Series is and what I aim for out of my mocks. So when you see Ultimate Scale Series, now you know what my aim is and what I'm striving for. What do you think of these standards? Are you more of a stud person, or do you prefer the studless look? Give me a like if you like the sound of it. I'm Reforger, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.